let's look at more detail some of these concepts in terms of the nerve cell. So if we're looking here on down the length of an axon, and we got um, negative charges and positive charges. You've got the fluid inside the axon, you got the extracellular fluid. And if you recall from chapter 3, we went over some of this. All right, so here we have a potential of minus 70 volts outside to inside, relatively speaking, and the membrane thickness is only 6 nanometers. And so that gives us an electric field on the order of 10 to the 7th volts per meter. Um, if we look at this in terms of the Nernst equation, and we look at the concentration inside versus the concentration outside, then we've got, yeah, we can calculate this. What should the relative concentration be, right? And for any univalent positive ions, it should be inside to outside, 13.7. Or in the figure, they have outside to inside. So outside to inside, 0.073. For negative ions, it's just the opposite. Negative ions, inside to outside should be 0.073, and outside to inside should be 13.7. Okay, so we know what we should expect if everything's simply in equilibrium. But when you look at the details, the sodium concentration inside the axon is way too low at 0.103 instead of 13.7. And the chloride is consistent with equilibrium, right? 13.9 versus 13.7. Potassium, however, is too high. Potassium inside the axon is around 30 versus 13.7. And if you look at, okay, what potential would put potassium in equilibrium, it's minus 90 millivolts, sorry, minus 90 millivolts. And so when you look at this, okay, there's something moving sodium and potassium out of equilibrium. What is it? And there's a protein inside the membrane. It's called a sodium potassium pump that uses metabolic energy to pump potassium into the cell and sodium out of the cell in a ratio, I think, of 3 sodiums every 2 potassium, something like that. Hope I didn't get that backwards. All right. And so it's pumping these in and out of the cell um, as part of the metabolic process. Um, and so this is kind of where we are, right? We've got a charged wall, if you will, a membrane that's like a little capacitor, and we have material proteins in the membrane that are keeping things out of equilibrium in terms of the concentrations, and setting us up so that we can actually look at begin so that we can actually consider how will we actually propagate a signal. That's for the next bit.